Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township, and the various municipalities that make laws, regulations, and ordinances that affect you out there.
And whether you live in the village of Leonard, the village of Oxford, Oxford Township, or Addison Township, these are the people that you elected, and the committees and the commissions that make decisions that directly affect you, whether you attended that meeting or not. So that's why we're here.
Partly because the other part is that we like to spread rumors. And he usually starts the rumors, and I kind of, go along with it.
Go along with it. You amplify it.
Sometimes that's the case. Well, you know what? Let's talk about a couple of meetings. We'll have fun with it because we're going to find humor that goes on in politics out there. And
Sometimes dark humor.
sometimes you have to dig for it. Other times it kind of bubbles to the top.
Well, what do you got?
Well, we're going to talk about two different meetings. One was at Addison Township and the ZBA.
Okay, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Got it. I was waiting for that cue to go
The,
through. Leonard Village Council.
Last
is the
resort
second
of those who want something done that didn't get it done.
The last resort. Yeah, it is. Actually, the Zoning Board of Appeals is the last resort. That's their last-ditch effort right there. If it fails, it's done, right? Okay, so let's talk about that then, the ZBA meeting. The chairman is John Hatfield, and Larry Smith is actually the co-chair. They actually do a pretty good job on the Addison level in the ZBA. Very well informed out there. You folks haven't attended a meeting, it might be a good idea, attend these, particularly if you're a neighbor and you're involved in some of these public hearings that they're having.
Or if your ox is about ready to get gored.
Right, if you can see the ox coming down the stretch, something's about to happen. But you can check the newspaper too, the Leader, and they will have notification of these public hearings coming up. So you might want to check that out too. The agenda, excuse me, first public hearing was with Mark Van Hoogstrand. I believe it's Hoogstrand, H-O-O-G, Hoogstrand, and his wife Colleen.
It's pronounced Herk.
Herkstrand?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
This guy being German background here.
It's Dutch.
It's Dutch? Close enough.
Okay.
Anyway, not close to Irish. No, Ireland's a little ways away.
If you say it with conviction, he'll believe you.
Yeah, right. I'll take your word for it right now, but I will make a note and check on it later. Anyway, Mark and Colleen, we'll call them, have a request, and they're in a residential area, and they live at 640 Manotick in Leonard, and off the lake, Lakeville Lake. Nice place to be. Nice lake.
Pretty
over there.
lake.
It is.
Very scenic.
But we're going to talk about crap right now because they want a 27-foot variance placement for a septic field.
Oh,
Now
I was wondering where you were going with that.
And now you can see it, right? Something smelled funny there, right? Okay, so that's what they required. And code, by the way, if you're on the lake, requires a minimum of 100 feet from the lake. I have a septic field like that.
Right.
And also...
Or else things start growing.
Yeah, they do out in the lake. Not a good thing. Excuse me. Also, 50 feet from a water source. In other words, your well. Yeah, well.
That one.
From that one. Yep. Mm-hmm. And actually, that is governed pretty much is the norm provided by the county. Oakland County.
Mm-hmm. So and they're there for reasons, folks.
Yeah. Now they're here to, of course, have a restriction. They're looking at 27-foot variance for this, which
from the 50,
from the 100.
From the 100,
which means that they'll have roughly about 70 feet, from the lake. So there are a number of questions that came up, and they said, well, what is this thing going to look like? You're going to dig a hole. What is it going to look like? And they said, well, it's going to be 6 feet deep. That sounds familiar. 26 feet wide and 30 feet long. So
septic tank with drainage hole,
right.
With drainage pipes.
They said, well, how are you going to protect the lake? Well, we're going to have a clay berm around it because there's clay there, and they're going to make sure that the area is protected, for the lake.
Does the berm surround the septic field itself or just the tank?
No, the septic field.
Okay.
The whole septic field.
Okay, that's a big berm.
But they're going to fill it in with sand and gravel, of course, in between. So it has
a lot of sand and gravel.
It is a lot of sand and gravel. Yeah. So there's an expense involved here.
How deep will it be?
It's going to be 6 feet deep.
The berm.
Well, the berm is going to be below the berm line.
Is it a berm if it's below the ground?
Well, it's clay. It's clay in there.
Oh, sure. But is it a berm if it's below the ground?
I don't know.
Or just a barrier.
Depends on where you're standing.
We'll call it a barrier.
Yeah, it looks like a berm.
It's a barrier.
It's a barrier? Okay, we'll call it that. They call it a berm, but we'll call it a barrier. Okay, a clay barrier, like a big bowl. Excuse me. They're going to fill it with sand and gravel, of course, and they're going to also have a filter, which is going to be a removable filter for cleaning. I bet you didn't know that they had such a thing. Well, where it comes out of septic field, you know, there's all kinds of stuff in there.
But septic fields go off in all directions, don't
Yeah,
they?
but when it comes off the tank, that's where they put the filter. You know, the
okay.
flow, the output.
I've never heard of that one before.
Yeah, I never did either, so it kind of took me by surprise. Oakland County did check this. By the way, all the preliminaries have to be done by the county, and they did check all these requirements, you know, with the owners, and they pretty much approved, you know, the direction that they were going to take with this. Excuse me. And they said, well, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? And up jumped Gerald and Joyce Pishu, I think it was, and they said, well, we're going to be under consideration for the next public hearing that we're scheduled for tonight. And
Does it have anything to do with the one that just got
It's really going to be
discussed?
very similar to the one that
okay.
we just discussed.
Okay.
Matter of fact, let's talk about that. The second public hearing, shall we?
If you insist.
Well, I do.
Okay.
Here we go. Gerald and Joyce live at 349 Baywood in Leonard, and they are on the lake also, on Lakeville Lake. And it's residential as well. And they request, though, a 30-foot variance instead of a 27-foot variance.
Are they? Is that a new house they've got, or are they just redigging a septic field?
It's a older house, and they're redoing an old septic field.
Okay.
And by the way, they did approve. I'm going to go back quickly.
Are they
to
grandfathered in for where the old one was?
No, I'm going to tell you how that works, though.
Okay.
On theirs, because it's going to be a little different than the first one. First one we talked about, of course, was with Mark and his wife Colleen, and that was a very straightforward process that they were doing. They answered all the questions, so they did approve that.
And they had the blessing of the county.
They had the blessing of the county, so they did approve it. Now that's an interesting point because we'll get back to that one too. They want a 30-foot variance.
This is
Gerald
second-
and Joyce. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. For the second public hearing, they want 30-foot, ability to have a variance. So that means, of course, they're going to have roughly about 60 feet from the lake, actually 70 feet from the lake. And again, they add all kinds of questions like, what's the septic tank going to be like? Well, this is a unique septic tank. It has 3 chambers in it.
Like a cow.
Except it doesn't eat grass. It might, but it don't eat grass.
What goes in goes out.
Yeah, what goes in goes out. But anyway, chamber 1 is a standard septic tank that this thing has. Now you're probably familiar with those. Out there where you're at, they probably float to the top in the spring. But
Well,
anyway, second chamber is a motorized chamber that dilutes the goodies that are inside.
kind of like a wearing blender.
Like a wearing blender. That's what it's like. And the third chamber is a filtration system. And
So there's no pulp.
no bulk. Right. You're right. You're right about that. So, but get this, there's an alarm on this system. So if it fails, the electrical system fails, it will contact the owner, let them know that they have an error. Or if they have a servicer, cut that out, will you? They have a servicer, and the servicer then will immediately come out and find out why it isn't working. Isn't that a good deal? We'll tell you more.
Sure it is.
Right after we come back. Right after this, folks.
Whether your family is interested in hunting or target shooting, or even if your family doesn't participate in these activities, having a family conversation about firearms safety is the right thing to do. Join me for a straightforward discussion of what to say it, and how to talk with both young and older kids about this important topic. It will be time well spent.
Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about a septic tank that has an automatic blender. and it's for
And 3 digestive systems like a cow.
right? And when it's all finished with it, the engineers, who was Hollow, let me see, it's called Hollow Engineering, and the engineer was there speaking before
I
the
see.
group, said you could almost drink this water coming out of it.
I'm sure.
You would want to be first.
Oh.
Probably not. Anyhow, it sounds like a pretty interesting engineered program.
Why
for-
would
for
they
this thing.
do this?
Because they want to filter as much as they can, make it as pure as possible, for the drainage. And by the way,
Are they going to put a clay berm around it?
they are.
Oh my God! But you can drink this. Well, maybe not.
David, make a note. You'll want to be the first to check it
boy.
out.
And I would assume that in the last stage, called the filter, that the filter lets the smooth stuff go through, but retains the pulp. And
does.
what happens after that? Do they actually come and pull the pulp out?
Yes.
Oh.
This is a great subject, folks. Bear with us. We'll get through this one, I think. So anyway, there's an alarm system on it, and should it fail, the thing jumps up, waves, and says, "Hey, I'm in trouble." So they're going to replace that or refix it. Then they'll send
I
a
think
technician.
they call
out.
that indigestion.
They do. They'll actually call the technician, and the technician go out there and say, "Oh, there's the problem."
I take it this is not the first one he's
Ew.
ever built.
Probably not.
Okay.
So anyway, this has been done before, I understand. So anyway, it's a
Okay.
very unique system.
But what is their situation the same as the previous one?
Yes, pretty much. They got it. Well, they said, "What about the drain bed?" One of the commissioners said, well, "How is the drain bed going to be laid down?" They said, "Well, we're going to put it over the old drain bed that's in there." They went, "Earth?"
Well, that makes it shallower.
Well, normally it would be, but as far as the perk level, I guess it's still okay according to the county, but it hasn't been certified yet to go ahead with it. So
Perk-
that's part of it too.
Perk meaning how quickly the wet stuff goes down.
You got it. And since it's purified, it'll probably go down a lot faster.
Oh.
Okay.
But
So-
then again, you could drink it.
You'll be the first.
No.
Take it out. Okay.
I'm sorry, folks.
This is an interesting subject, you have to admit, right? Okay. So anyway, so they said, no, there will be a clay berm around it too, as planned. And one commissioner said, well, is all the perk information in from the test and so forth, from the county, from the health department? And they said, no. They said, what? I said, no, it's not in.
Well,
They said, well, we can't make a decision until we get all the information.
Wouldn't the previous perk information that they had apply?
No,
Why?
it's got to be confirmed by the Oakland County Health Department.
Well, it's got
It's
to be
okay to go forward.
You got to be reperked,
It's got to it's got to be percolated.
kind of like old coffee.
We won't go there, folks. But anyway, so they said since we don't have all the information on this, that they will table it, until the next meeting. And would that give you adequate time in order to get the proper documentation from the county? And of course, the engineer said yes. He said we should have it by then, and we'll let the board know, to put us on the agenda. So they said otherwise it'll be on the next meeting.
I'd like you to follow up on that. Take a note.
Take a note. That is an interesting subject, though.
Yes, it is.
I've never heard of an engineered septic tank.
Well,
like that. Have you? Have you?
I've heard of an engineered sewer system where it's connected
Right.
to a main sewer system, and it acts basically like the holding tank on a boat. And once the level of the ingredients get high enough, then it pumps it up to the main sewer system.
Yeah, I've heard of that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go on to the next meeting. It's the Leonard Village Council meeting. And Mike McDonald, of course, is the president. And the co-chair of this particular group is Shar Sotheby. And they, of course, went through the Pledge of Allegiance. And what I find interesting, too, the second thing was they opened with a prayer, which is a good thing. And it doesn't happen with a lot of meetings, but
I think
some
that
do.
doesn't that happen at the Oxford Village
It
meeting?
does,
also?
at the village meeting also.
Okay.
But some meetings, they just don't do that, and I find that's a good touch. Excuse me. They did the minutes, and they were approved, of course, for November 9th. As you know, the ship sailed, the
Yep.
And then they went through the agenda and they said, is there any additional information that we need to have for the agenda? And they said no. They said, okay, when that's approved. They went through this thing pretty fast. Treasurer's report was read and received and filed. That was quick, bang, bang, bang. Folks out there getting things done. Budget adjustments. Mr. McDonald said...
Adjustments to the 2015 or the
yeah,
2016?
To the 2015.
Okay.
And they said that the budget, some money's going to have to be moved primarily due to the new tractor purchase, and that there's other things required for the tractor that they hadn't anticipated. One of the things that they need is a John Deere tractor. And by the way, they got the tractor. They like it. But the blade that they use for the snow, it needs an edge on it, a special edge, and I guess that didn't come with it, so they had to order that separate, and they needed approval to purchase that, and I think it's around $400 and some dollars to
So
get that.
how soon will they get that from Gillette?
They'll get that blade a lot quicker than they would from Gillette if they had to build it. They said, next thing
Boy, would that be sharp.
oh, it would be sharp. And feel sharp too. Be sharp. It would be. So anyway, bills, they said that, they take it out of several funds. They don't just take it out of the general fund.
Right.
So the bills was $32,613.53 from the general fund. Okay.
Well, you just said they took it from others.
Yeah, but there's others too.
Oh, okay.
The other one is a major fund, they call a major fund. They took $1,484.20 out of the major fund.
What's a major fund?
I have no idea, but that's what it's called. It's in the category group
Oh,
that they're using.
Major.
You should know that.
we need a major fund.
Yeah, put one in, make a note. Let's see how Bill likes that one, Bill Service.
We got to keep up with the Joneses. You
major.
know?
Yeah, right. Local fund also, $606.87. Now the next one you're going to understand where the fund comes from. That's the Parks and Rec, and they had to take $258.31 for the Parks and Rec. So there you have it. Excuse me. Public non-agenda items. Nope. That ship sailed. Nobody spoke up. So they said, well, the next subject is a CDBG that we have to cover. You know what that is?
Community Development Block Grant.
Yes. And they said there's available $6,000 for that block grant, but that we have roughly $10,000 left over from the last grant. We have 3 years to spend that. So the question was, do we want to use the $6,000 or do we want to use that in conjunction with the $10,000, which they probably should do? And there was a lot of conversation that went on about this with the various commissioners.
What do they want to do with it?
Well, they said that they would make a motion at $3,000 go to minor home repair. In other words, people that need homes repaired in the area. $3,000.
I take it these would be disadvantaged people.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to be in a certain money income group.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. Right. You'd be in the hole waving your hand.
Right.
You're the guy. Okay. Yeah, $3,000 on the minor home repair. $3,000 also for the Oxford Youth Group.
Okay.
That's a good organization.
Excellent.
And they said, well, we'll have $13,000 left over based on the $10,000 we had before, but what do you want to do with it? And he said, well, let's reprogram it. In other words, let's use it, let's decide on this later and what to do with it. It could be carried over.
Is that like tabling it?
It's kind of like tabling, yes, until they find a use for it. So anyway, that was what was done, and so that went fairly good. Then they said, old business. Let's talk about the mill roof. You know,
The old mill that's being
the
converted
old
into
mill
a
stream. Yes, you remember that?
a real tourist center
Yes,
by the Pollyant Trail.
and there's a lot to be said for that roof. And wait till you hear what I've got to say and what they had to say when we come back right after this. Hi, I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Terry Stiles.
Join Terry and me with the Oxford Weekly News broadcast on our Charter 191 and AT&T Channel 99, Monday through Friday, noon, 6:30, and 11 p.m.
Learn about local news in the Addison Township, Leonard, and Oxford viewing areas. News not usually covered by other stations.
If you don't have Charter or AT&T service, you can still catch our programs on your computer just by going to the website occtv.org and click on Programs. There you will find our programs and many others of local interest.
Watch OCTV where your news is closer to home.
Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the Leonard Village Council meeting that they had. And we worked our way right up to the old mill that they're remodeling.
The old mill. Was that by the old mill stream?
Well, there might have been a stream there years ago, but as there was oceans, different places that have disappeared.
Old
over a
mills
period of time.
typically, had a source of power in the
Yeah,
old days, and
right.
sometimes it was the old mill stream.
Well, wait till you hear about the notoriety that occurred on this one.
Notoriety.
Yes. Originally, there was a bid put in, and the bid was put in by Elder Construction. And the bid was $9,000 initially. And where he was going to replace the roof and the, what do they call that thing on the top?
The rooster. I don't know.
Yeah, where the
Weather
rooster
vane.
rests.
Was it a weather vane? I don't know.
The cupola? Yeah, cupola.
Was there a cupola?
Yeah, on top.
Oh.
He was going to do that, excuse me, for $9,000. Excuse me. And he said that he was going to donate $2,000 of his labor for this roof project. Remember where they did a write-up in the newspaper about it and all?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice
So,
guy.
Yeah. Well, anyway, wait till you hear what happened. He came back.
The rest of the story.
He came back later and said, well, I need more money because I use more materials than I anticipated. So he accepted, he said, I need $1,400.
As in, boy, was that a really old roof.
Right. So it came to $10,400. But excuse me, there's more.
Sounds like an infomercial.
Right. The roof is on now, right? And the cupola is up there, and everything looks pretty good. So the chairman and the president, Mike McDonald, he says, well, I'm going to go to him and find out how much, what the final payment is on this so that we were all squared away.
But he's done.
Well, yes, he's done. Now, the board is done because he handed him a bill for $6,856.
Additional?
Additional. Oh,
Out of the blue?
out of the blue.
Fait accompli,
Yes,
as they say.
as
in
they
France.
say. As they say. So,
I,
what this brings the total to is $17,256.
boy, it sounds like a typical government overrun.
So anyway, Shar eventually, she says, whoa, has he ever done this before in his billing process? And they said, well, we don't know. We didn't really know him that well. And they said, well, if we don't pay him, he probably won't come back and work for us again. Excuse me. You might not want to, right? At that rate, it's going to cost twice as much of where he put in an estimate.
Where did they
or
say
a
the
bid.
extra, what was it, $6,000 came from?
He's saying because extra materials it took him and extra labor to do the project.
Well,
and
it's a little late when he's done. I mean, wouldn't he
What
have
do you think?
wouldn't he have informed the officials before he actually laid this kind of cash out?
well, the question came up, wasn't there a contract with this guy? And they said, no, it was a handshake.
Oh dear.
Now you can see the water draining in the septic
You know
field.
what they say? You know what they say in court, don't you?
Yeah.
If it ain't in writing, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I would think that would be something that, every township and every committee, that's dealing with money should have contracts involved. And of course, they can't use the money from the village funds that people pay taxes on. So these are all primarily monies that people have donated.
Okay.
So now they know they're going to spend at least $6,000 more than what was anticipated. They are $8,256 over his original estimate. Can you imagine that?
What percentage
It's almost
is that?
twice. I don't know. It's
Well,
almost
it's over
50%.
50% or 100%.
Yeah, almost 100% increase. Now I know this much that when I was in business,
It does sound like a federal government contract.
It does.
Only they have contracts. They still do it.
right. But most business people, there are up and aboard, will say that okay, I goofed up. I'm going to eat it. There's nothing I
Oh,
can.
yeah, but-
I gave my bid. That.
Well,
What kind of a guy stays in business doesn't have a proper bid?
I don't know. Must be a good handshaker.
Well, I can tell you one thing. They shook down a whole bunch of people here on this board. So finally they said, well, what should we do? Shar Sotheby's says, well, I think maybe what we should do is go back and negotiate with him and suggest that we pay half the amount now and half of it when we get the money because we don't have the money. So it have to be through donations. And there was some chitter-chatter going on about that, and finally they settled, okay, that's the way to do it because nobody knew what to do.
I think it would have gone easier had he anticipated he was going to be 6,000 over and informed a few people.
A good businessman will do an estimate and usually throw 20% back over top of it on his estimate, you know, to protect himself. And that way you're pretty safe. And most business people out there will agree with what I just said. And they usually come out pretty good. And if you do not come out because of something that happened, even though you had 20%, you don't charge it to the customer. You know, you eat it.
But
And learn that as a lesson, as a chalk
But
up.
especially when you're dealing with an old building, sometimes you do run into unanticipated problems.
Well, with a roof, I can't see that because anybody that knows roofing knows that you're going to probably have to replace the sheathing on the roof. You may have to change some roof joists, that kind of thing. So anybody that knows their business should be able to go in and analyze exactly what's required, sit down at his computer, figure out what it's going to cost him per square foot and for materials.
So
And
can we
figure it
write
out.
that one off to, we're going to be smarter next time?
I think they will do that because this was a heck of a kick in the rear. Because I got to tell you that the folks out in Leonard, they actually are very trusting people, and that's why the handshake deal. Well, you know what? 50 years ago, it might have been a good deal.
That worked with diamond traders in New York, but I don't think anywhere else.
Yeah, my father always did business that way, and he never had a problem. You know, because if he did have a problem, he'd be hunting them down. That's usually what happened. But this guy, I think he got good newspaper publicity off from this, from the donation of supposedly for the labor that he was going to offer. But Lord, if he was to throw labor on top of that, another $2,000, he'd be well over his original bid. You know, it's
So,
crazy.
Well,
So that is what went on in Leonard. Excuse me. And there was other information or other business at the time. And of course, they did interview the public too. The public raised their hand. They said, "Well, you know, we're not paying for the guy's profit. You know, we're not. Why?
this
you
is
know,
the public that
This
was
was the
saying
public.
this?
Yeah,
Oh.
public was saying that. And they
No pitchforks, no torches?
they said no more handshaking deals, you know, pretty much. Then they went on, they said, well, as far as the rental ordinance, there's an ordinance coming forward for people that rent, and no progression has been made on that. Also,
That assigned to a committee?
is assigned to a committee. Fire prevention and protection ordinance. And by the way, state dictates, you know, what changes there are to be made in that. And so they did review that with the state, and they approved, you know, that particular ordinance. So that is going to be a change to your ordinance out there in Leonard. The Department of Public Works, they're going to need some repairs to their truck. They're going to need new rear seals for the wheels, and also they're going to need brake calipers. So he wanted the board to be aware that it's going to be additional expense.
Maintenance.
Maintenance, right. And the president, he reported that law enforcement, that they have filed papers with an owner that he was notified to clean up his property. Apparently it's been a, what do they call it, a blight, you know, on the community?
A blight.
A blight.
Haven't heard that one in a long time.
It's a blight.
Applies to crops and houses.
It's a weed blight. Yeah, it does. Crops and houses. This one was, I'm not sure if it was both. But anyway, so he wanted the board to know that that paperwork is moving forward and that the judicial system will probably handle this if the guy doesn't respond. Other than that, he said, Merry Christmas, have a great one. Here, what's coming up?
In any case, on 12/21, the only day that you're going to have meetings for till January 4th. On 12/21 at 4 o'clock, the Oxford Area Cable Communications Commission is going to be meeting a week early at 4 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, the Village of Oxford Downtown Development Authority, another favorite of yours.
Yes.
And at 7:30, the Addison Township Board of Trustees will be meeting. And after that, I got zipped till January 4th. And in closing, we're going to sing I wish you a Merry Christmas, I wish you a Merry Christmas, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Catch us next time right here on Minutes by Minute.
See you then.
Welcome to Leonard.